Ryan Garcia's live interview started like any other routine media appearance. The lights were bright, the cameras were rolling, and the atmosphere was relaxed. He had just finished a training session, looking a little worn out but still wearing that signature confident smile. Fans watching at home expected the usual: talk about his upcoming fight, a bit of friendly banter, and maybe a motivational quote or two. But what they got instead was something no one could have predicted. The host, a well-known sports anchor, asked him a series of standard questions about his training camp, his mindset, and his opponent. Everything seemed normal. Ryan was giving short, polite answers, occasionally flashing that grin. But then came the question that would change the tone of the entire conversation. The anchor leaned in slightly and said, "Ryan, what's the toughest part of being in boxing right now?" There was a pause. Ryan's smile faded. For a few seconds, he didn't answer, almost as if he was deciding whether to hold back or finally let the truth out. And then he started speaking, not in the upbeat, PR-friendly way fans were used to, but in a raw, unfiltered tone. "You really want to know?" he said, looking straight into the camera. "The toughest part isn't training. It's not the fights. It's the politics. It's the fake hype. It's the fact that some fights aren't about who's the best. They're about who the promoters want to win. Deals get made before punches are even thrown." The studio went silent. The anchor's eyes widened slightly, and you could almost feel the production crew shifting uncomfortably behind the scenes. Ryan kept going, his voice steady but charged with emotion. "People think this sport is pure competition, but behind the scenes, it's a business first. Fighters get protected. Matchups get manipulated. And if you don't play along with the system, they make sure you don't get the opportunities. I've seen it, I've felt it, and I'm tired of pretending it doesn't happen." The host quickly tried to move on to another topic, but the damage, or depending on how you look at it, the impact was already done. Within minutes, clips of that moment were all over social media. Fans were replaying the footage, dissecting his words, and debating what he meant. Some people saw it as a brave move, a young fighter standing up against the machine. Others called it reckless, accusing Ryan of looking for attention or making excuses for his past performances. And then there were those who wondered if he had just burned bridges with some of the most powerful people in boxing. On Twitter, hashtags like #RyanConfession, #BoxingPolitics, and #TruthOrStunt began trending. Fans flooded comment sections with takes ranging from "finally, someone's telling the truth," to "this is just a publicity stunt before his next fight." TikTok was full of reaction videos, some editing his words over dramatic music, others poking fun with memes and parody skits. Boxing analysts quickly jumped into the conversation. One commentator said, "If what Ryan's saying is true, it confirms a lot of suspicions fans have had for years. But he better be ready for the backlash. This sport doesn't like whistleblowers." Another counted, "This sounds more like frustration talking than facts." Fighters have off days. Emotions run high. I wouldn't take it too seriously. The controversy didn't just stay online, it made its way into mainstream sports media. Talk shows replayed the clip, debating whether Ryan had just exposed the dark side of boxing or simply gone on an emotional rant. Former fighters weighed in, some backing him up, others warning that he might regret speaking out so openly. And here's where things get even more interesting. Sources close to Ryan claim this wasn't some random outburst. They said he'd been frustrated for months, feeling like he wasn't getting the fights he deserved, and believing that certain decisions were being made to protect other fighters at his expense. According to one insider, Ryan's been biting his tongue for a long time. That question just set him off. It wasn't planned, but it wasn't coming from nowhere either. If that's true, it adds a whole new layer to the story. It suggests this was less about publicity and more about a fighter reaching his breaking point. But still, the timing raised eyebrows. With a rumored big fight announcement just around the corner, some wondered if the controversy was being used to generate hype and keep Ryan's name in the headlines. Whether it was intentional or not, it worked. The clip brought him more attention than any recent fight promotion. Fans who hadn't been following his career closely were suddenly interested. People who didn't even watch boxing were talking about it. And in the world of combat sports, attention often translates to ticket sales and pay-per-view buys. But attention can also come with consequences. Promoters don't like being accused of rigging matchups or manipulating outcomes, even indirectly. If Ryan's comments were taken as a shot at specific people, it could make negotiations for future fights more complicated. Some promoters might see him as a risk, someone who could go off script again. Then there's the question of credibility. Hardcore boxing fans have heard rumors about behind-the-scenes politics for years. Whispers of certain fighters being protected, of matchmaking designed to build marketable stars, of judges giving suspicious scorecards. It's all part of the sport's murky reputation. But hearing a current fighter speak about it so directly is rare. Still, without specifics or proof, critics argue that Ryan's words are just that, words. And that's the tricky part. His comments were explosive enough to spark debate, but vague enough to leave room for interpretation. Was he talking about a specific fight? A specific promoter? Or just venting about the general state of the sport? The lack of clarity only fueled more speculation. Meanwhile, Ryan stayed relatively quiet after the interview. He posted a few cryptic tweets, things like "truth hurts" and "can't silence the real ones," but avoided giving any detailed follow-up. This only made fans more curious. Some saw it as him standing his ground, refusing to back down. Others saw it as him dodging questions now that the heat was on. Behind the scenes, his team was reportedly split. Some believed the moment humanized Ryan, showing fans his frustration and passion for the sport. Others worried it could damage his relationships in the boxing world and limit his options moving forward. From a storytelling perspective, the moment was perfect. It had everything: suspense, shock, controversy, and unanswered questions. And that's exactly why it went viral. People love drama, especially when it involves a high-profile athlete breaking the unspoken rules of their industry. So where does this leave Ryan Garcia? On one hand, he's got more buzz than ever. On the other, he might have to deal with the fallout from speaking his mind. If he keeps winning, the controversy could become part of his legend, a fighter who not only took on opponents in the ring but also challenged the system outside of it. But if he stumbles, critics will point back to this moment as evidence of distraction or arrogance. The truth is, boxing has always thrived on personalities as much as performances. Fans don't just buy fights, they buy into stories. And right now, Ryan's story is more interesting than it's been in a long time. Whether you see him as a hero, a troublemaker, or just a guy who let his emotions get the better of him, you can't deny he's got people talking. And maybe, just maybe, that was the point all along. What do you think? Was Ryan Garcia telling the truth about the politics of boxing? Was it an emotional slip in the heat of the moment? Or was it a calculated move to keep himself in the spotlight ahead of a big fight announcement? Let me know in the comments below, because no matter which side you're on, one thing's for sure: this won't be the last we hear of it.